This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
It's opening day, baby. It's time. Even though it's not the same, potentially on Thursday there could be snow in Detroit. Vito's back. He finally dedicated 30 minutes from his busy schedule to something related to the podcast, something related to Detroit sports. I finally tracked him down. It's good to talk baseball. Even though I have been the one that has been paying attention, attending all the Zoom meetings, understanding, getting to know AJ Hinch and what this makeup of this Tigers team is going to look like, I know Vito has been reading on the side and definitely did his preparation for the debut edition of Tigers Talk for the 2021 season, where we take a look probably weekly, bi-weekly at first as we get our schedules, because the NFL is king, Detroit Sports Podcast, but we'll try to bring as much content in the world of baseball as humanly possible. Doc's taking a vacation soon, so we'll try our best to put out content with Vito and myself, or Vito by himself, bringing you great interviews and baseball discussions. But Vito, early on, your early impressions of what you saw for the Tigers in spring training. It was okay, up and down, a lot of interesting storylines for sure.
Well, I was about to say, can I talk here? I mean, I haven't been on it how long? I can't even talk. Can't even get a word in. Well, thanks for the intro anyways, John.
Well, actually, wait, I'll step in. The reason why you can't talk is at some point in the middle of 2021, I finally embraced my stardom, my role in the world of Detroit sports. And even though I've been humble in my beginnings in the basement, it does set a tone. But then I realized, you know what? I'm a psychologist. I'm successful. I've taken a project that I definitely believed in, and I brought it to the masses. And another company has said, we like you. We want to keep you. And pay attention, a teaser. On April 5th, I will drop what I think will be the ultimate validation for everything I've done. And I'm very happy, with what's transpired with the podcast, with my relationship with you and everybody that stuck with it. I've done my part, and I'm very happy. But at the midway point, I realized, you know what? I'm not the Nico Goodrum of the podcast. I'm the Miggy. So I'm stepping up with the entourage. I'm stepping up my game. And I realized more of me and less of you probably would indicate higher ratings, more people retaining and listening, and more people actually wanting to click. You come on because I like you, and you're one of the rare people who created his own job. But I've come to realize you have like the Nico Goodrum. You're kind of in between Nico Goodrum and Jamer Candelario. Some talent, but it's not harnessed right, and that's on you. But I'm Miggy, baby. So
you mean on you?
No.
Hey, come on.
You step to the back of the bus. I'm taking my own private limo. Just get to my level, and then we can have an amazing nationally syndicated baseball broadcast. But I'll wait. I got all the time in the world, baby. But I've realized I'm the Miggy of this operation, and so the more I talk, I think the better the podcast is going to be. But I am curious, what did you think of the Tigers in spring training?
Well, yeah, thanks for all that, John, by the way. Thanks for all that. But, you're right. You're the Miggy of the podcast because you're old and washed up. Look at that. So, yeah, I nailed it. I get it. It's totally applicable to you, the Miggy label. So take it and run with it. I don't want to be Miguel Cabrera, who is on the wrong side of 30. He is nearly washed up, and not exactly, as we talk about the Tigers now finally here on Tigers Talk with Chirco and Company. Remember, it was that, aptly named at one point. I think we just say Tigers Talk now, basically now. But remember, I was the man, the head honcho, and then I brought you alongside me to be a voice on the podcast. We had my brother Dominic Chirco way back, who's a White Sox guy, and that's an albatross of a thing. But once again, getting to the nitty-gritty here, it's a baseball conversation on Tigers Talk, the debut edition of 2021, John, which this is just terrific. I'm grinning ear to ear, and was even while you were talking all that nonsense, just to be able to talk about the Detroit Tigers once again on this platform here via the DSP network. And when you look at what the Tigers right now have to offer too, John, you know what? They're still very much in a rebuilding state. And they have a couple of veterans that they've added to the mix. But they're largely a young core, and even younger now, parting ways with Jordan Zimmerman, finally getting out from under that contract, which was an albatross of a deal signed by Al Avila as Tigers general manager. And you look at what he's done since Al Avila. A lot of misses, not a lot of hits, not a lot of activity via the free agent market. I mean, you got Robbie Grossman, a good defensive outfielder, can hit a little bit of pop. And he played for the Stros and A.J. Hinch in Houston when Hinch was a manager of the Houston Astros. Grossman has also played in other spots as well throughout his Major League Baseball career. So he's a solid major leaguer. He can be a major league regular as well. But the rest of this roster from top to bottom, and specifically with the hitters, man, you know what? It's not that sexy. It's not that appetizing. There's a lot of voids in that Tigers order. And now, especially at first base, even with your boy, the boy that you pretend to be in Miguel Cabrera, manning first base at least a couple of times per week, based on the word from Lakeland and what A.J. Hinch had to tell all the beat reporters out there that cover the team in spring camp this year. So we've seen these, beat guys, Evan Petzold of the Free Press, and others come out and say, Evan Woodbury, right, of MLive.com, come out and say that, hey, this is going to be the plan now for the Tigers when it comes to Miguel Cabrera and how to handle him on a week-to-week basis. So they're still going to give him plenty of ABs, but he's going to get some time now at first base, along with Jonathan Scope, Harold Castro, you name it, multiple individuals that will not include Renato Nunez, though. Remember, Nunez did not make the big league club out of spring camp. A guy that many people projected to be like the fourth best hitter in the lineup this season, too. Yet because he stinks defensively, was relegated to AAA Toledo to start off this season. And actually, he could have gone to another ball club when they optioned him, left him off the major league roster to start this season, the 26-man roster for the Tigers opening day ball club. Yet Nunez decided, for whatever reason, he found the reason within himself to stay with the Tigers and to truck it out at AAA Toledo to start off this campaign. And I love it from the Tigers' perspective because this guy can rake. He can hit for power. And I think the stat is, John, that he averaged 28 bombs the last 2 seasons per 162 games. That's nothing to sniff at, right, or to take lightly. Especially when you look at the Tigers' order, and from a season ago specifically in the last couple of years at this point, when you've had guys that really haven't been that good, that have led the team in home runs, guys that haven't even hit more than 14, 15 bombs that have led the team in home runs. Miguel Cabrera paced the team in homers last year, and what did he do? Hit 12 home runs, I believe. I mean, mediocre power at this point from Miggy and the rest of the Tigers club. So you kind of need a guy like Nunez to come up at some point this season, John, and to really just strike some power in this ball club. Because once again, the rest of this lineup, who do you have that can hit for power on a consistent game-to-game basis? Is it Grossman? Really, no. Is it Victor Reyes? Not really. Jonathan Scope maybe here and there, but not consistently. Jimmer Candelario, not consistently. Nico Goodrum, not consistently. I like the backstop the Tigers ended up going out and getting this offseason. A veteran in Wilson Ramos, he has a little bit of pop in his bat. And actually was a positive WAR player and much better than the Tigers' backstops from a year ago. And remember, the Austin Romine wasn't that bad, but the backups were really bad, such as Grayson Griner, who comes into this season as a Tigers backup once again. So once again, when you look at the big picture for this lineup, as I'm talking about that right now, not even getting into the pitching yet, but the lineup is really devoid of big-time power hitters.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's going to be a cause for concern, I think, all season long, too, John.
But I believe the storyline of spring training was outfielder Akil Baddoo. I felt like he just came in and really secured a spot. And that's what you want to see. Somebody that takes the reins, that understands the meaning of the opportunity. And he came in this spring, and all of a sudden you started seeing, hey, when he was inserted into the lineup, hey, he's got a little bit of pop. Now, of course, we've seen many spring training legends and things like that, and it has to translate into regular season success. But he made the team, and I think that this team might have a different makeup in terms of how they want to attack. I think they want to use the fundamentals of going base to base, understanding the importance of being aggressive and manufacturing runs. And yeah, I don't think you're going to see a lot of major 3-run homers and a team that's going to really crush the baseball. But I like kind of the makeup of how a certain lineup could look day in and day out. So Akil Baddoo, pay attention to him. And collectively, I think that early on, I'm curious to see how this offense definitely looks. Yeah, tell us your thoughts. What do you think of the bullpen and the starting rotation? I found it interesting that Fulmer and Daniel Norris did not earn spots in the starting rotation. A.J. Hinch said that potentially, and then in a recent interview on the radio, Daniel Norris said he's going to be the high leverage guy. He wants to be in the position to get the baseball when the team needs him the most. Michael Fulmer still working through issues with his arm and trying to come back and recover from a major arm injury and recovery. So I like the makeup of the starting rotation, but I look at it collectively, and we'll talk about it too. When you look at it, it does have a makeup of a team that's still going to lose a lot of games, probably finish in last place. But I think there's a lot of pieces and players that we can look at in terms of their development. Tell me, who are you interested in watching in the starting rotation and how you feel that unit shakes out?
Well, John, really quick, I didn't even mention Akil Baddoo, and that was bad. No pun intended. Baddoo on my part, okay? Not to mention that guy who had 5 home runs in spring, a guy that didn't play past high A ball in Minnesota, and a Rule 5 draft pick of the Tigers. Tigers are taking him with their big league club to start this season. So I love what the Tigers could potentially get out of him early on and throughout the course of this campaign, John. But now to the pitchers, okay? Let's focus on those individuals. And you look at who's going to man the rotation. They're going with 5 men. They had talked about 6, but remember Spencer Turnbull, who would have been the ace and the opening day starter, if it weren't for him ending up on the COVID-19, list to start this campaign. So he's dealing with that, going to push himself through that, hopefully get back sooner than later into the Tigers' 5 or 6 man, I would imagine, rotation when he does return to the Tigers' big league club. So would love to see him back and healthy at some point. But to start off against the Indians on opening day, Thursday, April 1 at Comerica Park with fans in the stands, John, once and for all. After last season being removed from that kind of experience for everybody when it came to fans being in the stands, you have left-hander Matthew Boyd, who is coming into this season after a really downtrodden campaign in which he struggled mightily just in terms of getting outs. Simply, right? I mean, it just came down to that. He couldn't get anybody out on a game-to-game basis or start-to-start basis for the most part in the COVID-19 abbreviated 2020 campaign. Yet he comes into this season as the opening day starter, almost in my opinion by default. Without Turnbull and his presence, Turnbull would have been the guy once again. But without him being in the rotation to start this campaign, John, the Tigers had to kind of go with Boyd because he has the experience of being an opening day starter as well in years past. And then you have Julio Teheran, who's been good in years past. He has, but it's been a while for him. Looked good with some zip on his fastball in spring, though, and A.J. Hinch liked what he had to bring to the table. Then you look at Jose Urena, who comes from the Miami Marlins, a guy that can throw fast as well, but struggles with control and never has really put up prolific numbers in his career as a major league starting arm. And Tarek Skubal right now is slotted in as a number 3. How about that for the Tigers to open up the 2021 regular season? Casey Mize as the 5th starter. So they decided to bring him onto the club to start this season and to make him the 5th starter, John, when, as you know, and maybe even better than me from watching all the games this spring too, he struggled and largely throughout this spring. Now, his last start, he looked pretty darn good. He struck out the batter, showed that, that strikeout potential with this stuff. And that's what you're going to need to see out of him moving forward. He's going to have to make batters swing and miss. If he doesn't, he doesn't have this dynamite fastball just to get it past batters left and right. Sure, he could hit 97 miles per hour on the radar gun, and he did here and there throughout spring. But he's not going to be the guy that just blows you away, man, with a 2-seamer, 4-seamer, the fastball velocity specifically. He's not going to be that kind of arm for the Tigers. And I think almost all throughout his major league career moving forward, too. So you look at, once again, the 1 through 5, and it's decent at best. It's better than last year, though, John. I'll say that much, because you're without Jordan Zimmerman once and for all, who ended up injured then last year and pitched towards the end of the campaign again once he got healthy. And he just had a minor league deal, by the way, with the Milwaukee Brewers. So good luck to Jordan Zimmerman over there trying to resurrect his Major League Baseball career. Anyways, transitioning to the bullpen now, and you look at who's going to be the high leverage guy out of the pen. Is it going to be Daniel Norris, a guy that you already mentioned, a guy that brings some good stuff as a left-hander out of the pen that can pitch some innings as well because of his starting pitching experience? Michael Fulmer being relegated to bullpen duty to start this season. How about that decision made by A.J. Hinch? A bold one, but I think also a valid one to really get Michael Fulmer back on the right track. So it'll be interesting to see how they utilize him out of the pen and how effective he is as well. And can he throw some gas out of the pen? Maybe be more effective in that fashion too. But you also have some guys like Gregory Soto, Jose Cisnero, and all these guys that I can mention here, but I won't be mentioning one big name in Joe Jimenez, who's not going to start off the season with the big league club. Another bold decision by A.J. Hinch, but I think one that will motivate Joe Jimenez to really get his act together, man, to really get back on the right track and mentally and physically both. Because he needs help. I think in between the ears, I think he really does. He needs some help there to get himself committed to his craft as a big league and high leverage relief arm. Because he's got the stuff. We've seen it before. He's been an all-star. I mean, that is true. And he can throw it past batters, can be dynamite out of the pen late in games. Yet he's been so darn inconsistent in years past, and realistically speaking, John, all throughout his big league career. So you need him to really rectify his stuff and his image before he gets back to the bigs. And that's why I like what A.J. Hinch did there. No nonsense. And he's taken who he believes are the best guys to start off the season with, that give him the best chance to win. Just like with Akil Baddoo, a guy that, once again, talking about a hitter here, but a Rule 5 draft pick who, he didn't have to bring with the club. Now, if he wanted to keep him for the whole entire season, he had you to start off the season. But I think a guy like that, John, he really brought onto this club because he believes he can impact the club positively, can really make that big time impact on the club and help them out as a unit when it comes to hitting the baseball and actually producing some runs on a game-to-game basis, which we know they've mightily struggled with in years past. And same thing with the bullpen, with the starting rotation, putting Mize and Skubal in the rotation, putting Fulmer in the bullpen. I think at the end of the day, John, the setup from A.J. Hinch is that, hey, this gives my club the best chance to win to start off the 2021 regular season. And even though everybody knows that this team is rebuilding still and is not going to win many games, and not going to be a playoff contender in 2021, his strategy is still to try to put this team in the best position to succeed on a game-to-game basis, to rack up as many wins as possible. And at the end of the day, to not just tank, to not just go through the motions and to lose game in, game out, which I believe at times they did under the leadership of Ron Gardenhire. And it'd be not to his fault totally, because the talent wasn't always there. And we know that is true from covering the team in years past here, John. But still, I think they kind of fell victim to that as a club, where they were going through the motions at times. They were tanking, simply not trying. And that was from the club as a whole, up and down the lineup, up and down the rotation, all throughout the bullpen. A.J. Hinch seems to me, John, to be much more no nonsense, right? He's going to just tell you like it is and try to get this team back on track after so many darn years of losing and once again of going through the motions, in my opinion.
Let me add a little nugget here too, because you didn't say it. It's a predominantly heavy left-handed bullpen rotation. What do you think about it because of the fact that there's 5 or 6 guys in the bullpen that are lefty? Do you think it's an advantage? And why do you think A.J. Hinch decided to stack it in that manner?
Well, you know what? I think it's just, he is once again, and I think it's wise, man. He's picking the best arms for his bullpen. These are the guys he believes that can help his team succeed the most right now. And it's like, hey, Derek Holland had a good spring. He's a veteran arm who really flamed out as a starting arm, but good enough to be a big league bullpen arm. So put him in the darn bullpen. I know we're losing right now. We're rebuilding, and we want to get as many young guys as possible on the team and in that bullpen, John, specifically. But hey, Holland was producing. Put him in the bullpen. We know Tyler Alexander is a young guy that can get it done. You put him in the bullpen. You just put these guys that once again, that right now can get it done. And sure, when you have a predominant left-handed pen, it's going to be a disadvantage at times against really good right-handed hitters because there are so many darn good right-handed hitters in Major League Baseball. So, yeah, you do work at a disadvantage. But also, once again, I think A.J. Hinch is using the mindset that, hey, these guys, I'm stacking in this bullpen right now. Give me the best chance to win. Give me the best chance to, put away batters late in games, to get out of tough situations late in games. And that's why I think he's rolling with this bullpen in this starting rotation to start the season. And sure, there's going to be some cracks, right, in the rotation, in the pen, some guys that just don't work out, end up moving by the wayside, right? The Tigers will end up optioning them to AAA Toledo, end up cutting them. But on the surface right now, once again, you know what? I think he's putting the best arms in the Tigers rotation, in the Tigers bullpen to start the season. And he's giving, John, remember, a lot of young guys the chance to succeed or fail early on this year, too. Once again, Mize wasn't that great to start spring. It wasn't collectively throughout spring. Wasn't very good last year in his debut campaign. And by the way, he still holds some rookie status, could win, I think, Rookie of the Year here this season, too. But anyways, he wasn't that good. Wasn't really effective and even close to dominant last season, outside of a couple of starts, really, right, where he showed some glimpses of brilliance. But he wasn't that darn good. But he's given him a chance right now to prove his worth at the major league level, to really get tested. The same thing with Skubal and, countless others. And you're going to see some guys that I think end up being called up at some point if they're healthy enough. Joey Wentz. You look at Matt Manning. If they're healthy enough at some point this campaign, John, you can expect these guys to be called up. And guess what? That's going to be the best thing for the Tigers to do, especially as more than likely they're going to be out of any kind of playoff race by midseason. So that's when you really turn to your young players even more, the guys that are on the farm that are really just raking it or pitching effectively. You call them up at that point. And you know what? Then a guy like Derek Holland, if he flames out, he goes by the wayside. A guy like Julio Teheran, if he flames out, he goes by the wayside. Those guys are reclamation projects, aren't guys that you're stuck with the full season necessarily. So if they stink it up, John, you move on from them. You cut ties with them. And that's why, once again, I like what the Tigers are doing to start this season. And then you mix in some of those other young players as the season progresses.
All right, before we get to our final two topics, talking about prospects and opening day, for those of you that are new to the Detroit Sports Podcast Network, anywhere that you listen to your favorite podcast, all you got to do is type in Detroit Sports Podcast, and when you hit subscribe, our daily content finds you, where we talk about baseball, the Pistons, Wings, Lions, all things in regards to Detroit sports. We appreciate all the support since 2013, and our baseball podcast, make sure you follow Vito on Twitter at Vito Jerome. He'll definitely be paying attention during opening day. He'll answer any of your baseball questions at any times. And even though he is, a step behind me, he's still in the majors. So he's not third in the lineup. He's like seventh, but he's still in the dance. And so when you look at baseball, message Vito, get in the mix there. He'll bring you great guests, great insight. You'll be right there in the know too, because he is a credentialed reporter. He will be out there at Comerica Park if they approve him and continue to let a guy that potentially could have a virus at any time walk up there based on his social habits. But as long as he passes, the virus test and the STD tests, I think they'll continue to let him in to Comerica Park. All right, couple more topics before our time is up and I go about my business of working out and getting back to, the high wheeling, high flying lifestyle that is now something I have become accustomed to now that I'm this highly important, highly paid figure in the world of Detroit sports and in Detroit.
Please.
So now,
Good God.
I will have to announce to you too that you've had direct access to me, but I might have to have you now go through the misses before you get to me. I think when you become,
I'd rather deal with them. Yeah, I'd rather talk to you, Israel.
Exactly.
Sign me up for that.
When you move up the ranks, you don't just get access to the big timer. You have to kind of maybe go through and make an appointment, potentially go through one of my handlers, and we'll figure that out moving forward, because getting direct access to me might be something that you have yet to earn. But we'll see we'll see how this goes moving forward as the baseball season progresses because, Miguel Cabrera don't roll with Jeimer Candelario. He rolls with the big timers and his agent, his entourage, and the important people. I roll with the big timers, the bosses, the executives in the world of baseball. So they have to, as we're talking, I got one phone in my ear and paying attention to the pressers and what's going on with the roster, and two players that potentially are on my radar, but did not really keep me engaged as much as I thought. Now, Casey Mize, give him credit. Once it was announced that he made the roster, he came out and dominated, had a bunch of strikeouts, and played well. But throughout the spring, in totality, and I know there's varying degrees of emphasis that people will place on it. AJ Hinch kind of was like, it's no one's going to remember the spring. Let's see what happens. But Casey Mize struggled, and Spencer Torkelson, oh boy, only one hit in spring. And so I want to get your sense on the Tigers' two major prospects, Casey Mize and Spencer Torkelson, because they both basically underwhelmed in spring training.
Well, Mize would be more ready than Spencer Torkelson, who tore it up at Arizona State, remember, and hit all these home runs and per average, pure hitter, you name it. And now they've toyed around with him at third base. Is he going to play third base long-term or first base for the Tigers? I still think it's probably more than likely at first because you have that void there, and it's just easier to field for a guy that can then focus on hitting largely. But yeah, he struggled mightily. There's no doubt about it. When you look at his stats, what was it? 1 for 24? So an anemic batting average, well below the Mendoza line. Couldn't hit for contact to save his life in spring. And guess what, though? He's young. He's a budding superstar. And you still have to believe that. Yes, you do. Because he is so darn young. He is fresh out of college. Was just drafted last summer. So give the guy some time. Cut him some slack, man. These fans that are griping about him already and are calling him a guy that's not going to, fulfill his potential and live up to the bill. Come on, guys. Let's move past that. Because there's only so many, by the way, there's only 3 guys I read in Major League history that were drafted number 1 overall, John, that have never made the majors. So he's not going to be that guy, more than likely. Okay, so let's not even, it's horrible that I even brought it up, right? Because now some people will start thinking and talking about it and tweeting at me on Twitter at Vito Jerome that, hey, you brought this up, so maybe it could be a possibility. Well, throw that out the window right now with this guy, okay? And once again, cut the darn dude some slack because he's going to be good. Sure, we don't know, and I can't guarantee to you, John, or anybody right now at the DSP network or listening to this very edition of Tigers Talk, that he's going to be a superstar slugger one day, that he's going to be the next great Arizona State slugger like Barry Bonds was and be this great prolific home run hitter. He might never be that guy. But, remember, he still has been compared to the likes of Paul Konerko, Paulie, as my brother loved to call him and loved to root him on when he was with Dom's White Sox and was this great first baseman for so many years. And a guy that won a World Series, remember, on the south side of Chicago in 2005. So he could still be that guy, okay? So let's not be too harsh on Spencer Torkelson. Now, Mize, we can be a little bit harsher on. We really can be because last year he was a disappointment largely. Coming, out of that alternate site where the Tigers youngsters were. They called him up mid-season, and people expected him to be, this guy that just emerged on the scene and was dominant right away. And he really wasn't. Had a couple of good outings against Dominic's White Sox, so remember, are going to be this great ball club this year too. But outside of that, John, he wasn't that darn efficient. He just really was not. And that was a bit of a cause for concern when you saw his erroneous mechanics at times and his lack of productivity on the mound last season. And then he repeated some of those darn bad mechanics and bad results in spring this year. So it's a cause for concern with Mize. Yet towards the end of spring, he did get the hang of things, got into a groove a bit, and was striking out batters, like I had said earlier on this episode. So that was a positive sign for Mr. Mize. And I'm still a believer, man. Okay, all eyes are on the Mize. He is the Tigers' prize. He was the Tigers' number 1 prospect for Torkelson for a very valid reason, because of his dominant arsenal. So he can still be really good. And we've seen him, as I said earlier, too, hit the radar gun at 97.4, I think, miles per hour. So he can still bring it with the heat, too, guys. So he's got good stuff. He's got basically, even though he's showcased some bad mechanics, maybe a little bit here and there, like I said already, he's got the overall makeup, though, to be a strong every 5th day starting arm at the major league level. That at the very least can be an all-star caliber starting arm. maybe not a Cy Young caliber guy, and maybe that's Tarek Skubal at this point. Maybe he actually has surpassed Mize in proficiency and dominance and will showcase that even more and more moving forward. But right now, Mize, yes, when you compare him and Torque, John, Mize is the guy that I think you can have a little bit of concern with what he's going to do going into this season, because of the fact that they brought him up last year. He wasn't that great in spring either this year. And now the expectations are relatively high. We want to see him improve. Whereas with Torque, you know what? Give the guy some time. He's going to start off in low, minor league ball, go through some struggles at first, right? Some growing pains, and grow as time goes on. And that's just the process with professional baseball. Because remember, guys, too, minor league baseball is professional baseball. A lot of people forget that. So he's going to go through some struggles while on the farm, go through his growing pains. But I think eventually, once again, you got to believe in the fact that he will be a very good hitter once he reaches the majors one day.
All right, Vito, and our last subject, it's kind of a downer too. Thursday's opening day. Unfortunately, with how things are rolling because of COVID and the massive spike of the coronavirus in Metro Detroit, the city is basically saying, look, if you don't got one of the tickets, if you're not one of the 8,000 members that's going to be there, please don't come down to Detroit. Now, I don't think a lot of people are going to listen. I think a lot of people are going to go downtown. But unfortunately, the weather's not going to cooperate. You're seeing 30-degree and snow, whereas the rest of the week was great, which is really crazy for April 1st. Myself, I'll be driving out of town on Thursday, so I will not be partaking. It's about time after the last 6 months I've had. It's time for me to kind of dial it down for just a couple days. But I will say this. I do think opening day does have an air and a mystique about it, but it's just not the same, even though it's 8,000 people. I think they're going to shut it down. I think that the numbers are just too high. And I would agree. If you don't go for this year, just be safe. If you don't have a ticket, maybe consider, like you said, staying home, relaxing, enjoying it like you will from the comforts of your home, and really kind of be safe because of the fact that the spread is just so bad. I'm not certain that, the full engagement of fans returning is where it needs to be at. What are your thoughts? It's opening day, but it doesn't have the feel of like everyone ready to party, because it might be 20,000 people, 50,000 people, but it won't be the hundreds of thousands of people that are accustomed to going down there and hanging out. And then the weather's going to suck too.
Yeah, what is it, 40 degrees? You said a chance to snow. I mean, who the hell knows what's going to happen? But it's not going to be very appetizing weather, to say the least, for a Tigers opening day at Comerica Park. Yeah, we've been there, done that with the Tigers on opening day, haven't we? People try to make it a holiday, right? A holiday for the state of Michigan. Folks go in, mass gatherings and gather outside of the ballpark and tailgate beforehand and have a darn good time usually, and probably liquor it up a little bit too, and maybe are a little bit unable to walk to the ballpark by the start time of the game. But this year will be different, John. No lie with that, because it's just the times, man. It's crazy still with COVID, and you got to mask up. You got to take precaution, and you got to still be leery of who you're gathering around and going to the ball game or events with. And it's still not wise really to gather in these mass gatherings. The CDC and others have said it, and I don't got to say it myself too, to, obviously make all of you cognizant of the fact that we have an issue still with COVID, and the numbers are still pretty darn high, and especially throughout the state of Michigan. So I get what the Tigers are doing. I feel like, we're all lucky enough to be able to go to these games again. I'm going to one on April 5th, actually. You had brought up that's a big day for you. I'm going as a fan, man. So I'm going to live it up in so many words, but in a safe manner because of COVID. Still wear my mask, and you have to when you enter Comerica anyways. So, but I'm looking forward to it, and looking forward to a season, John, where you can gather at these games. You just got to do it safely. But it's still better than last year, isn't it? I mean, you have to say that at least. I mean, think about last year where you couldn't go to a darn game unless you were credentialed, and you went to a couple of games. I didn't even go to one, just didn't work out for me. And honestly, I didn't feel too safe with going to any games last year either. This year, I'm a bit more courageous. I've been vaccinated. I mean, that's a good thing too. Got the Johnson & Johnson, the J&J vaccine, as I like to call it. So I'm a little bit more courageous, looking forward to attending some games, and starting with on Monday, which should be a fun time for me and my buddy Brett, who you know. So Brett and I are going. He's vaccinated, and we're looking forward to a really nice game and hopefully a fun season for all the fans. Despite the fact the Tigers are going to be largely irrelevant once again in terms of wins and losses. But still, you can go to a darn game now. I mean, how great is that after last year and going through what we did as a state, as a country with COVID, and how bad conditions were? You know, they've improved. We got a little bit more that we can do now. And you know what? Let's go have fun, but have fun safely at the same time.
All right, Vito, great opening broadcast. Make sure you follow Vito on Twitter at Vito Jerome. Follow the network at Detroit Podcast. Make sure you subscribe so the daily content finds you. And the Tigers Talk podcast will bring you a lot of content, a lot of inside information from the world of baseball, all across the AL, the NL, and everything going on with the Detroit Tigers. Vito, good stuff. Let's have a good season, and let's hope these Tigers start off the year with some success and at least be competitive. That's all I'm looking for. Competitive ball games. Don't make mistakes, and let's see what AJ Hinch and his new coaching staff brings to the table.
Stay safe, stay healthy, guys, as well.